going on, everybody? This is Matt Does Fitness, and I just invented a new word: plagiarism. Okay, right, in today's video I'm going to talk to you about a topic which comes up all the time. I get asked it very frequently, or I get asked about this topic very frequently, and that is how to get massive biceps. Right, lots of people say, I want to get huge biceps, my biceps are lagging, I want to get them bigger, what do I do? Now, I'm going to say something which might, you might think is a bit controversial, you might find it a bit, disturbing, upsetting, but unfortunately that is my opinion, and I'm going to tell you now what I believe personally the biggest factor to getting giant biceps. So if you see someone that has massive biceps, I personally believe the biggest factor is genetics, right? So some people genetically have good bicep insertions, and they naturally have big biceps, right? So they might not do the optimal training to get big biceps, but they have them, right? I personally, I don't focus on, I don't train biceps all the time, I don't focus, I don't have any kind of, it's not any kind of priority for me to get big biceps, but my biceps are pretty decent size, right? Whereas I know other people who desperately want to get massive biceps, they really try to specialise and hone their training on developing bigger biceps, but their biceps aren't that impressive. So that is the biggest thing. There's always going to be a bit of a limiting factor or a bit of an advantage to people that have good bicep genetics. That said, you can still obviously influence the size of your biceps, you can still grow your biceps, or you can inhibit the growth of your biceps if you're doing the wrong thing. So the first thing I want to say, the first thing I want to talk about is kind of common errors that people tend to do. So the first and biggest thing I would say is that some people get their training split wrong. Okay, so some people will train biceps in a separate session. Now that's okay if you're going to split up your if you're bodybuilding and you're going to split up your sessions. So you literally do a body part each day. So for example, Monday is biceps, Tuesday is triceps, Wednesday is chest, Thursday is back, etc. That isn't so bad. However, what some people will do is that they will maybe have like 2 back days a week or 2 bicep days a week. If you are doing your biceps separate to your back, you're going to end up overtraining your biceps. You're not going to give them enough recovery. They're not going to grow sufficiently. So for example, if you do biceps on a Monday and then back on a Tuesday, your biceps are obviously still going to be getting worked when you're doing back. You're doing rows, you're doing pull-ups, whatever you're doing, there's going to be an element of bicep engagement. Therefore, they're not getting sufficient, that 48 hours recovery they need from the previous session. So that is the biggest thing I would see. I know a few people that have that split. They have, like, say, 2 back days and 1 or 2 bicep days in a week, because they're trying so hard to develop their biceps. But the irony is that in doing that, they are not giving their biceps sufficient recovery, and therefore they are inhibiting their growth. The next thing I will say is that some people don't train them sufficiently. They don't train them enough. So in my opinion, training biceps once a week is not enough. Some people say, well, I go crazy. I train them once a week, but I'll do like 2 hours of biceps. I do like 300 arm curls. That still, in my opinion, isn't enough. There's going to become a point within your session where you can't stimulate any more growth. You could do biceps for 10 hours, but after that first half an hour or that first hour, you're wasting your time, and you're almost going to be doing more harm than good. So I would suggest, and my ethos on this is to do little but more often. So I personally, I do 3 back and bicep kind of mini sessions a week, which is after my deadlifts and my squats. And I might only do 1 or 2 bicep exercises in those sessions, but because I'm doing them 3 times a week, I have that frequency, I can afford to drop the volume there. If you are only training them once a week, even if you're doing a massive amount of volume, in my opinion, that isn't enough. And the third thing I would say is obviously people that are doing them too much. So if you're training biceps 3 times a week, and you're doing, even if it's in your back session and you've got that day recovery in between, if you're going mental, and again you're doing 4, 5, 6 bicep exercises in each session 3 times a week, again, in my opinion, that's going to be too much, and you're going to inhibit your growth. So I think you need to strike a balance, and obviously make sure it is key that you are getting that recovery between those sessions. Even things, like I said, even those back exercises where you are really trying hard to engage your back, it is impossible not to get an element, even a small element of bicep engagement, which is going to impede your recovery. Therefore, you need to make sure you either group your back and your bicep sessions together, or you give them at least a day in between so that you're giving your biceps enough recovery to grow. Now, as far as what are the best things to do, there are obviously, you know, I have exercises that I prefer, but I would say the biggest thing is not to stick with the same exercise. Now, everyone has, you know, maybe one or two exercises that, you know, that they really like, that they favour, but if you do the same exercise all the time, so if you say, right, you know, I love doing W bar curls. If you do W bar curls once, twice, 3 times a week, and that's all you do, your body's going to adapt, and so after a while, even if you up the weight and you change the reps and the sets, there's still going to be an element of, you know, your body's adapted. It's not going to be stimulating that same growth, it's not forcing your body to have to adapt because it's used to the movement. So what I personally do, and this applies to most of my training, with the exception of my big 3 lifts, is that I will change my exercises up. So maybe in one session I'll do some cable curls, next session I'll do some barbell curls, next session I'll do some, you know, some dumbbell curls, maybe some incline curls. I try and alternate, so I never do the same bicep exercise in maybe even in a week, but definitely in consecutive sessions. I think that's really, really important. That said, I personally, I mean, I go through phases. I definitely would say that cable curls, I think they're really good. So literally you're just standing up, you can alternate from a wide to a standard to a narrow grip. Obviously the benefit there is that the resistance is the movement is resisted the whole way. So obviously if you're doing some standing barbell or dumbbell curls, after you get to this point and upwards, there's very, very little resistance because obviously gravity is negated. If you are using the cable, obviously the resistance is there the entire way, so you get that top part of the movement resisted. I also like crucifix cable curls, so where your arms are out here and you're doing the curls like this. Big fan of those. I feel like, I know you can't specifically target one part of your bicep in terms of, you know, like the lower, middle, upper part, but I feel like it really hits the bulk of the kind of the belly of my biceps more so than any other exercise. I also like, at the moment, I like alternating dumbbell curls with a bit of supination, so you start from here and you come up and finish there. I like those. To be honest, if you go back and you look at my deadlift and squat videos, you will see the bicep work I do as accessory work afterwards. There's loads of stuff, but my biggest thing I will say to you, in conclusion, is to make sure you are getting one day in between, at least in between your sessions. So, for example, if you train 5 or 6 days a week, I would go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, for example. So 3 days where you do biceps, you have a nice day in between. Put your back into that session as well, so that you are grouping back and biceps. You're not going to get that crossover, so you inhibit the recovery. Make sure you change the exercises you're doing. In terms of each exercise, so for example, if you're doing some barbell curls, whatever you do, I would say something like 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps. Try and change the focus, so the emphasis. Don't always do, you know, bodybuilding style sets of 10 to 12. Maybe do some lower reps, so some heavier kind of 5, 6, 7, 8 rep stuff. Maybe 3 sets of kind of 6-ish reps with a heavier weight than you would normally use. Even though your form's not going to feel as great and you might not feel as much engagement as you do normally, you're going to stimulate the adaptation because it's something different, it's something your body is not used to, and that is in the long term going to lead to more growth, in my opinion. So, lots of bicep chat there. Anything you think I've missed, any other kind of queries you have on that topic, feel free to put it in the comment section. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. I hope you found it informative. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, as always, and I will see you in my next video.